Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation. And my guest today is Marilyn L. Redmond. She is the author of 11 books and an award winning international writer. She's also a syndicated columnist, consultant, counselor, regression and past life therapist, and a speaker. She's the author of Paradigm Busters, Reveal the Real You. This is the topic of our conversation today, but she has written so many interesting books. I want to mention some of the titles: A Spark of Truth, All Time Victim, Domestic Violence, Road to Success, Peace on Earth, Finding Your New Life, The Real Meaning of 2012, and Spiritual Alignment. You also have other titles that can be found on her website and on Amazon. So we already had a brief conversation yesterday, Marilyn, that we didn't record, but today this is for the record. And the first question that I love asking before we dive into your book and all the questions that it's meant to be here in the conversation that's meant to take to unfold. I have this question that never left me. How would you introduce yourself? Who is Marilyn in this very moment?
Well, Marilyn is still searching for answers. I, s- I found out more will be revealed. And when you get a new answer, then that leaves and you get a little wisdom from it. And then guess what? And then something else pops in. And so I'm still learning. I have a insatiable curiosity.
Yes, me too. Isn't it? It might be. Do you feel like this is somehow um, part of that flow? We spoke of the concept of flow, just being curious and just going moment by moment, asking questions and kind of delighting ourselves in the. I mean, I just laugh when I find the answers for some questions. It's I can. It's almost like ticklish. It's amazing how curiosity can lead us to joyful places. I think the word is joy, really. Do you feel the same way?
Well, joy is what we naturally are, and we're returning to it by getting rid of the barriers that blocked it. And that's what my books are all about. So, as we come into joy, in my case, I had to actually train myself to be joyful because in the depressive childhood I had with all the abuse and the domestic violence and the mental illness, it was darkness and you weren't supposed to be happy. Simmer down, Marilyn. So I've had to actually teach myself how to come into that joy. And it's been an interesting trip for me. And I now can laugh spontaneously.
Yes, yes, yeah. And that's what I heard too. Somebody said that we need to be at peace, or the mind needs to quiet enough in order for us to really, really, truthfully smile or laugh, right? Laugh. It's something that's very sacred in a way. And I truly feel that way. It's the sacredness of laughter, right? There's something about it.
Well, it actually dispels the ego. And you can't have laughter and be depressed or be in the dark or be in anger and fear.
Mm,
They're incompatible.
mm,
And so as you go and you mentioned paradigm busters, that's the process. As you release each of those things that are blocking the joy, you come into bits and pieces, little by little, step by step. You get happier and happier. And um, the joy can come in because it's always been there. It's our culture that has blocked it. And learning to be in that flow is the process of life.
oh my God. I often say what's not to love about the message, this message, specific message. It's what we all need, but at the same time, it's the very thing that we're stuck on, most of us, not letting go, right? Of what it's getting in the way of our true self, of joy. Let's say joy per se, it's our essence. So how talk to me for a moment about that. How what are some of the suggestions that you give in the book? The readers or the listeners would love to for them to have a taste of that. Like what are some of the suggestions of letting go, I know it's not something new. We know that pretty much all of us know, but we are not able to apply that all the time, every time.
Well, that is a problem because so many people know about it, but they're not given directions. My Paradigm Busters book
Yeah.
is been called the ultimate self-help book because it actually takes you through the process of releasing what you don't want, which is always fear-based somehow, and replacing it with love and grace. So that's the part many
Right.
people
Right.
miss, is that they release something and then anything can come in. So I was told in meditation, what you take out, put in what you want, and so you won't have that void, or you won't have to release some other things that popped in that you really still didn't want. So go from what you didn't want into what you do want. And I have charts in the book that you can go through your fears and find out where they came from so
Yeah.
you can understand them, and then learn to accept them, that we created them for our spiritual growth. There actually are opportunities to move
Mm,
beyond the fear, guilt, shame, judgment.
mm,
And each chapter is a chapter on the principles of spirituality. So as you grow through the book, I was actually growing myself, and it's channeled from Archangel Michael. And as you go through the
yeah.
book, you talk about honesty, because if we're self-honest with ourselves, that's what opens the door to finding reality. And is it you that
Mm,
brings hope when you find hope finally. In
mm,
my case, I was suicidal because life was so drastic, and my first chapter is the story of
yeah.
my experience that brought me to where I am today. And so I didn't have hope, but when I found out, hope has always been there. I just was blocked from it, from all the difficulties, trauma and drama that I went through. And so you move into faith,
Right.
and I didn't even hear the word faith. I went to church for 50 years, and I didn't even know about faith.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so I had to learn how to have faith and how to put it into action. I was a fence sitter because if I did the wrong thing, what's going to happen? And it would be disastrous. That's what I thought. So action is very
Oh,
important. So
yeah.
when you have faith, you put it into action. Nothing happens until the energy moves. Action is moving the energy. So if you have faith in a higher
Mm,
power or some spiritual source that you love, pure love
yeah.
casts out all fear. So you have faith in
Yeah.
something, then you have to take action to implement it. And so I had to get off the fence and actually live in that faith. And gradually it grows. The
Yeah.
more you actually live in that faith, that gets larger, and you have new challenges to try. I say, okay, God, I need more faith for this one. And we grow again. And that brings
Yeah.
courage, and one of the spiritual principles of courage. And what I've done and found out is, it's not my will be done, it's my higher power, my spiritual, you know, energy that's always been within me, the God within. And I have to let that
Right.
be the leading energy so I can move forward and move out of the fear. And I have to move. Without moving forward, you don't grow. So
Right.
courage is very
Right.
important. So there's a chapter on courage. And integrity is another spiritual principle. It's in another chapter. And if I'm honest with
Yeah.
myself, I can be honest with you. Now, I would try to
Mm,
be honest in my life. I paid my bills. I always tried to be Miss Perfect because I didn't want to get hurt again. And it's not about
right.
perfection. It's about honesty. Am I being honest with, where am I still acting like a child? And how can I grow into
Right.
that adulthood that I'm trying to search
Mm,
for? And the willingness to do,
mm,
I have to be willing to change my inner self. It's not how I act at the grocery store and pay my bill at the cash register, but it's my inner self that I have to be honest with. And am I willing to change from being a fear based person into a love based person? And when I'm willing
right.
to change, I literally come into humility because I'm letting God be the
Yeah.
director. And it's not my will
Right.
be done, which is often selfish and self centered and based in fear. And now I'm letting the
Right.
love of the universe handle the situation. And it always turns out better than I could have planned. so, so,
So
you know,
true. Yeah.
giving up the I used to think I was the director, right? Well, I was
Yes.
a teacher for 30
Uh,
years and I thought I had all the answers, so I don't have the answers. They're really coming from within today, from my heart. And when I let
mm,
God
mm,
do it and give God the acknowledgement for that, thank you, God, for whatever, wonderful situation showed up, like our being here today. That's, I take
yeah.
away my ego wanting to run the show, and God's running the show.
Right.
And then that moves me
Right.
into grace. And I'll tell you, the first time I meditated and felt grace, I wanted more. It felt so good. After a lifetime of all the
Yeah.
abuse I went through, I thought that I was really to go through the chapters of the book. I was really ready to make those changes because it was the best thing I'd ever had. I hadn't had anything that good in my life happen. I mean, I'm trying suicide and my
Oh,
husband's trying to kill me. And when you come into grace, lovely people are in your life and lovely things happen. It's a much better place to
yeah.
be. So, we come
Right.
into wholeness. We're become whole people and we're not damaged. We come into our worthiness, that we are worthy people and that we are
Mm.
whole. Sometimes my daughter almost walked out of a church service at a church. She says, because they were singing about being broken. And she says, Mom, I'm not broken. And I don't feel broken today
Mm,
either.
you see, um, gosh, they are. Uh, what can I say about it? In a sense, it's almost like you have all, not just the words, the concepts, and these principles translated into words, but then to me it always goes back to the energy, the intention behind everything. And I can sense in you the beautiful intention, coming from that place of freedom, of love, just to kind of seed this world with more of that. So it's almost like a conversation stopper. You're like, I just want to be here in your presence, and yeah, it's just really beautiful. I know that I have to go back to my notes, but I want to thank you again and again and again for being open to going through all the challenges, not giving up, and it's still kind of holding on to that, knowing that something was there. You call it hope, you call it faith. Ah, I just call it God itself. Like,
Well, they're
knowing
all
that where you are, God is, isn't it?
they're all aspects of God, and it's adapting and employing it into our lives rather than just words. We have to live it. And that's where,
Mm,
the courage comes in, is living a new way of life, which is actually more productive. We feel better, but can be scary. We have been
yeah.
indoctrinated into the unknown is fearful, but the unknown is God. And so we shy away
Mm,
from wanting to have courage because what'll happen? Well, it just gets better. So why not ask God for the courage and go forward? And it's really, in my book, Spark of Truth,
wow.
I share how we got programmed into that fear. So it's an illusion. It's not real. Fear is false
Right.
emotions appearing real because we've been living in our
Right.
ego, edging God out.
Right.
And the whole thing is about merging God in, because we separated. God never left. God's always in our soul and our heart. We are the ones that have been
Mm,
brainwashed into fear, thinking we need to look to other places for our answers when the answers are always within. I got addicted to prescriptions through a psychiatrist trying to get help for anxiety. I was told by my minister to stay in my marriage, and my husband's trying to kill me. And I'm living at the minister's house when he tells me this. So I looked for answers
right.
outside. And what I found is if I'm listening to my intuition, that's the right answer for me. It might not be the right answer for someone else. My perfume might be your poison, but it's the right answer that
Right.
works for me and takes me into where I want to be and who I am.
Right. Yes. And well, I love that you chapter 1 is your story in the book Paradigm Busters, because that creates already this space for connection, for humanity, for the human connection. There's something about that. It's really, it opens the door to higher insights to come in. I have I have seen that to be true. I know that to be true. So now I'm working a lot with storytelling. Like here in Hawaii, we are doing a lot of the work of storytelling, personal storytelling. And of course there's it's not hidden, so the agenda is not hidden. They're called, well, the workshops that we are hosting is pathways to joy. So anything that we can release, anything that we can share, because by sharing, right, Marilyn, we release some of that fear too. Do you feel that way?
Well, you have to release what's blocking what you want. And there's a, you were talking about your culture in Hawaii. In my area, there's a lot of Indians. And there's a story about the Indian chief telling his grandson, the story, there's two wolves inside of you. And one wolf is hatred and uh, fear, guilt, shame, judgment, all, that kind of energy. And there's the other wolf is love and joy and gratitude, compassion and caring and kindness. And the grandson sitting there
Mm,
thinking about this, and he says, which wolf wins? And the Indian chief says,
yeah.
the one you feed.
Right. Right.
So we quit
Right.
feeding the
That's
fear, the guilt, and the judgment, and whatever, and we start being God. The universe is always positive. We just have been taught not
right.
to be positive. So the more I'm big a believer in affirmations. We affirm the truth, and that's what we grow into. And I have some affirmations in my room that are 20 years old, and I'm just growing into them. And they don't
Mhm.
happen overnight, but with your actions
Yeah.
speak louder than words. Words get in the way sometimes.
Right.
And how you're handling
Right.
your life, instead of reacting from the fear, you actually have a couple seconds to make a different choice and to respond from love.
Mm,
And every time you send out love, what goes around comes around, and the love will come back to you. So why not send that out?
right. Yeah. Yes, yes, and yes. A billion times to that. And then love, I know sometimes when I ask the question, what is love? A lot of people say, it can be a feeling, but it's really an action. It's something that, it has to be demonstrated. It has to be in alignment with what you say and what you do. They got to be together. So, um, I don't know. Is that something that you also feel to be true? Is that something that um, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I go a lot more by energy, so I go by this sense of love, like the intention of love. And then even if my actions seem to be contradictory to some people, then it wouldn't mind. It would doesn't really disrupt me because I know the truth where I'm coming from. So the energy, the intention of love, because some people they're not ready to receive love. I have found from my own experience. So talk to me a little bit about that, Marilyn, the energy of kindness, compassion, love, the intention of that, and the action that some people sometimes don't recognize it.
Well, it's because we've been so brainwashed, is one way to put it. In fear, if you have had a lot of abuse or trauma, or were not loved as a child for whatever reason, you're afraid of
Yeah,
love. And so you find it
right.
difficult when other people around you are loving. In fact, when I left divorced my husband, who was a psychopath, alcoholic, sex addict, rageaholic, I wasn't used to love. And over the years, I started growing spiritually, and I ended up with a fellow who was very healthy. And I was very upset one night. We'd watched a movie called The Beautiful Mind, and it triggered my mental
Yeah.
illness. And I went home with him, and I got up and I was getting out of Dodge. I couldn't handle even being around him. And my friend, I called her and I
Right.
said, "What's going on?" And she says, "You get yourself back up there and learn to be around a healthy person." And I had a lot of anxiety
Mm,
while I changed my comfort zone so I could accept love. You don't just all of a sudden have it happen. It took about 4 months for me to be around him and be treated with
mm,
respect and acknowledged and validated and all those things I never had growing up or in my marriage. So I had to literally change and accept the good
wow.
things. Tesla says the universe is energy, or what people call it consciousness, vibration, and frequency, and love is the highest frequency. Pure love, it says, I'm not a Bible thumper, but pure love casteth out all fear. So my Paradigm
Right.
Busters book helps you to cast out the fear so you can move into that higher vibration and
Mm,
frequencies that are
mm,
positive. Nothing is good and bad, those are judgments. It just is. Love created everything. But if you see it through the fear, you're in the low vibrations and that you can't handle love. But if you burst out of the fear into the reality of what love really truly is and accept it, you move into higher consciousness, higher vibrations, words that describe higher vibrations. And in my book, um, Finding Reality Beyond Fear, that's you can actually move
mm,
into the Christ consciousness. And in the Bible, it says, if you're a new creature, you're of Christ. And so we move into unconditional love. That's the ultimate goal. And when we can do that,
yeah.
we have completed our spiritual journey on this planet. And not everybody can do it. You have to keep coming back and keep going up the, you might say,
Um,
Jacob's ladder, and bringing your consciousness little by little up into that high love, and it will dissipate.
right.
There's a story about a little boy in the dark bedroom at night, and he says, "Mommy, Mommy, there's a boogeyman in here." And she comes in and turns on the light, and she says, "I don't see any boogeyman." And what we're doing is we're turning on the light. The fear is the darkness. And so we can actually see the
Mm,
light of God, which is in our heart. And
right.
my it's a flame in like a flame in our heart. And at one point, 40 years ago, I was told I was dying, and the flame, I actually saw it spiritually, and it was almost out. And my body said, I'm dying. And today that flame
Yeah.
is glowing very well, very bright. There's a
Mm,
song, this
mm.
little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And that's what I try to do today.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Ah, it's a beautiful. I love that song. Yeah. I love that song. Um, yes, yeah. So this does it have to do because you mentioned that sometimes it takes many lifetimes, right, Marilyn? So uh, how do we get to? How do we know what lifetime is the last one? Like for this, in your case, do you think this is the last one? Have you learned most or all of the lessons? Do you feel that way?
I believe it is my last one. I became a past life regressionist so I could help people deal with where did this fear start, and we carry it with us until we find the origin of the problem. I help people
Right,
heal where it started so they don't have to stay stuck in that and can move forward
right,
into the light. And so in my case, I've had dozens of past lives. We all have many, many past lives. I've had
right.
about 650, and most people have around 1,000 or so. And as we move
Wow.
into the regression process, your consciousness will bring the right past life to the surface that you need to look at next. So you
Right.
start seeing the patterns in your life of where it started, what happened in the next life, how did you continue that, and now you don't have to continue the pattern. If you find the pattern, you can break the pattern.
Yeah. So it's all about breaking the pattern, and that's where transformation and healing, my personal transformation and healing, helps. Anything that has to do with those modalities. So, do you recommend also therapy for some people? Would that be helpful? In it's pretty much, what would you say is the most helpful path or paths when it comes to evolving from one lifetime to lifetime? Do you? Yeah.
Well, one of the problems with our society is they want everybody to go to college and get book training. And if you're really on the spiritual path, that kind of a counselor isn't going to help you, because if they haven't done the work themselves, they don't have the energy to share with you so you can heal. If somebody hasn't done the
Right,
work
right,
and they have a lot of letters behind their name, doesn't mean they can actually be
right.
beneficial. To a degree, yes. But if you're going to change your soul, you need to go to a person that has done deeper work in with their own lives, and then that energy will actually heal. What we share grows. I mean, God has got energy and expansion, and as you share it
Mm,
with somebody who's already experienced it, you grow into it when where they are. It's like the tuning fork on a piano. The one string rises to the right pitch of the tuning fork. So you're like you're
right,
lower, and then you're rising to the one that's going to be the right one. And it's a process
right,
of identifying those areas that have to be vibrationally raised in your consciousness. Your energy raises into more and more love, and eventually, it's
yeah.
like, oh, inside the light, like the light bulb came on. Instead of a 60-watt light bulb, all of a sudden it's a 100-watt light bulb.
Yeah, yes, yes, and yes, yes. I keep saying yes to everything because it resonates so true to me. And you've been doing this work for a long time now, writing your books. Can you talk to me a little bit about the services that you offer at this time, Maryland, for those who are interested to contacting you for, besides the books? So you do regression, called past life therapy, actually. Are you still doing that on a daily basis?
Well, kind of I'm 86, so I'm kind of partially retired, but I like to
Yeah.
do regression work with people. Nowadays, with technology, we can use things like Facebook or Messenger, so you don't have to live right in the community and you can connect with the person. And recently, I did an
Right.
exorcism on somebody, which is on my YouTube. I have 200 YouTubes, and it's called Invitation to an
Wow.
Exorcism. And so I can work in
Yeah.
that deep soul level with people. And sometimes, I had a gal show up, and she was very codependent, and we did a past life regression. And she says, "Oh, is that what I'm doing? I don't have to do that anymore." So she broke her codependency.
Right.
So all aspects of your life come from some kind of fear somewhere that we haven't maybe
Mm,
explored, and that's called denial. So we have to get out of the denial when you're ready
mm,
to look at the truth of
mm,
what the
mm,
situation is, and that's what my
mm.
focus is where did it start and how can we heal it? And I've actually healed
Right. So,
medical problems that way. I had a client who had a thyroid problem, and she had huge rage about her parents leaving her with her grandparents to go off drinking and drugging and being abandoned.
yeah,
And she
yeah,
was taking thyroid medicine, and she came back. She was a long-term client, and she came back several months later after some work we'd done, and she says, "I don't need my thyroid medicine anymore." And then a few months later, she says, "I'm meeting my mother for lunch." And that one really floored me, because that her body told her, your body will tell you the answers. And that's the kind of work I
mm,
do. And so her body said, "We made you have the thyroid problem to distract you from your rage about your mother." So, it's
Wow.
valuable information we don't have access otherwise.
Right. Wow. So it's fascinating how everything is designed in a sense, right, Marilyn, to give us the path, the answers for their evolution. Even the bodies involved, everything is just our relationships, everything, where we live and the community that we live in. Isn't that amazing? So, in a sense, God is just kind of God's very patient. It's actually God's not waiting, right? It gives us all the time in the world. We don't even, it's actually timeless. And, on your pace, it's just a beautiful thing to contemplate. It's a freedom itself, the freedom to grow, the freedom to be, the freedom to experience until we are ready to to return home, in a sense.
Well, I
It's just a
actually had that
beautiful.
experience this week where I felt like I returned home. As a little girl, one of my nightmares every night was, I don't know which is why. My mother would send me for bread in the nightmare. She'd send me for bread at the local store, and I'd come down the street and I couldn't find my house. I couldn't, night after night, I couldn't find my house. And in my meditation this last week, I found my house and I had my suitcase and I walked through the front door and I was home.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Even our dreams, right? Our meditations, our dreams, our
There
wow,
Your
everything.
dreams are really important because if you can't express it in your physical life, and it's
Yeah.
something that is ready to leave, it will come up in your dreams to leave subconsciously. And some people get very concerned about nightmares. Well, actually, it turned out that it was helping me to I have to find my way home, which is, of course, the spiritual journey. And
Mm,
at this point, I've been on the path for 40 years at this point. And so our dreams can tell us good things, and it can tell us also what we need to still work on. Dreams are very
right.
informative.
Yeah, that's something that I pay attention to. I met somebody recently here on the island, and she said, "I don't dream anymore." Is that something that you have? Have you heard about of that before? A human that doesn't dream?
Yeah, sometimes I don't dream. um, what I found out is, in Paradigm Busters, as you clean the channel, we're channels of God's love, and
Mm.
as you clean the channel, there's less garbage in there to dream about.
Ah.
So, it's like, be still and know that I am God. And so as the stillness comes in, there isn't necessary to dream, because dreams are
Um,
basically a message from what you need to be aware of. And one of the things I did, which
um,
became very helpful, because their
yeah,
dreams are very symbolic. And
right.
I have a book that helps explain the symbols, but I was not wanting to worry about the book. And so I prayed, I said, God, make the dream as understandable as I can figure out so I don't have to go, looking through books for the answers. And so most of
Right.
my dreams are pretty obvious of what's going on. It might not show up immediately. Like if I
Right.
dreamt that night, I'll wake up and meditate and, oh, okay, that's what's going on. So,
Right.
for me anyway, they aren't such a mystery as they are to some people.
Yeah, thank you for elaborating on that question, and also this observation of not having dreams basically means that you have less to work with or less to work on. I never thought it that way, but that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Uh, when it comes to storytelling, this is something that I'm very interested these days. You start your book with your story. So, is that something that would be helpful for people who are going through domestic violence and very challenging moments at this time to perhaps write their story or share their story? Do we have to do they have to go into a different principle before they share their story, like honesty, hope, more? I like the way you have more hope in your book,
Oh,
and then faith. Yeah, I like that. Emphasizing, yeah, it's very emphatic. So is that would that be helpful, Marilyn, to before we share our story, that we do some of this work that you suggest through the principles that you outline?
I suggest it highly. The people I work with, I do a lot of volunteer work too. And the people I work with, I ask them to write a biography. Now, sometimes they only cover the surface because that's what they're in tune with. And over
Right,
time, they're going to get more insight into it. But you have to start somewhere. So,
right.
what it gives me when I work with a person, I know the dynamics below what they're saying. So, I know how to address it. So,
Yeah.
you have to start somewhere. And I had no clue. Now, if you had told me this years and years ago that I would attract a man to try to kill me, that's domestic
Oh,
violence.
I
I
I
was so
know.
angry from my first past life. I was so angry at the circumstances I found myself in. I wanted to die.
Yeah.
And I won't give you all the gritty details, but we don't have time.
It's in,
But
it's
the
in the book.
bottom line was I wanted to die. And so I was actually in domestic violence for four past lives, three of them
Uh,
with the same man. And what I know today is I have healed those origins of why I wanted to die. I was a very needy orphan, deserted
yeah.
in a desert without food, without clothing, without warmth. I mean, it was just absolutely miserable circumstances. And I thought,
Yeah.
well, why am I here? I might as well die, you know. And so guess what? I like attracts like. So whoever is in your life and it's not going well, it's a reflection of you. It's not them. They're playing out the part for you to see yourself. My husband we were two peas in the pod, and the problems he was having were my problems. And I have
Mm,
had to look at those and change them from today I have forgiveness for him and compassion because he went through a terrible childhood to be able to play that part for me.
right.
And he said, he came to me in meditation one night and he said, we all come in soul groups if you're aware of that. And he said, nobody would play that part for you. And he said,
Ah,
I loved you so much. I'm going to cry. I loved you so much that I finally decided I would play that part. And
mm,
so he actually did me a favor so I
yeah.
could grow out of it emotionally and find the truth about the situations that today I'm not a needy person and I don't want to die.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. Oh my God, Marilyn. Yeah. So it plays out as a story too. The way you speak it, I have heard before. This way is like a movie, right? This whole experience of your
Our
healing.
lives are like movies, and what our consciousness is like this, the film projector behind us, and we're
Yeah.
looking at the screen and not realizing that the projector is our consciousness showing on the screen what we need to look at and how to handle it and what to do and why it's there and how it
Mm,
comes together. And when we realize we have actually created our own problems, nobody else has. The only person you can heal is yourself inside. And it's you healing your soul, finding the love that you were created in. And there's no limits. Society says, well, you're limited. Well, that's not true. God's not limited. And
right.
the
Mm,
people want you to have goals. I have not ever had goals because that's a limiting. If I had kept my life just as a teacher, I would have not ever become a writer. That was my worst subject in school. I was valedictorian, and the only B I got was in writing. So,
yeah.
God has this plan. I didn't know I was at the time, but
Yeah.
what's in front of you, you have to look at and then identify how you're going to handle that in a loving resolution. And that person provided you the opportunity. People will say it's trauma, drama, or whatever. It's how you
Mm,
react to it. And we react in fear, and that causes our trouble. Well, now
mm,
today I can send love. You can send love to people in spirit. I send love to him and thank him because he played his part so well. I visualized my family on the stage of a theater, and I stood up and I clapped and I said, you all played your part so well that I bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, I remember having the same reflection with my parents. Yeah, my father, my mother especially, she was so difficult. Then, yeah, if at some point that came to me as the awareness showed to me, this is just a movie. And she's playing that part in a really well. I mean, she's just being a wonderful, incredible. Actress, right? She could win award for that. That's true. To this day, now she's a little bit better. I'm far from her, but it's funny how so people play the part that we need, so we can grow. And actually, it's not easy for them to play those parts, but they do it
No,
anyway. How
it's
amazing!
not. My parents came in a meditation, my mother and my real father, arm in arm, happy as can be. And I, as a little children, never saw them happy. And they fought every night, and one night I thought my dad was going to beat me up next. I mean, it was a disastrous situation. And in
Yeah.
my meditation, they were happy and arm in arm, and they apologized for my childhood and said, God said, if you're going to be her parents, put your arms behind your back and you cannot interfere with the experiences she's going to go through because those are the lessons she needs to learn.
Wow. Yes. Yes. I have a question for you about what we talked before about joy. It's our essence. Love is our essence. Wholeness is our essence. Actually, freedom is our essence. We are spirit. Yeah, it's pure and it's free. So, by knowing that, the knowledge of our essence, can that dispel all this, let's say, karmic um, patterns? Could that heal everything in at once, per se?
No, it can't heal at once. If you all of a sudden had a magic wand and all of that disappeared, end up in the mental hospital because it would blow your circuits.
Ah,
You have
yeah,
your system is an energetic system, energy, and
yeah.
it's like a circuit has its
Mm,
path, and if you put too much energy into it, it'll go poof, and that's what would happen. That would happen to you if you put all that energy in at once. It would go poof, and you wouldn't
yeah.
be who you are. You would not be
Ah,
happy with the situation. You'd end up in the mental hospital if you're physically still around.
mm.
It would be
So
too
that
much.
has happened.
It would be too much for all at once.
That makes a lot of sense because one of the people that we know, you probably heard about him, Maharaji. He's a Hindu, India, and spiritual teacher that he didn't want to be a teacher. That was not the idea anyway. He just spelled all fear, just came to kind of to what he was, and that put him on the floor, almost like he was dead. He just laid there like there's nothing that left to do, nothing left to do here, and he ended up becoming a spiritual teacher by, I think, by the community itself that just picked him up, started giving him food, dressing him, because he would not really care for the body anymore or anything anymore. He was just completely in bliss in that world of joy, of freedom. But he was able to speak actually and have conversations when people ask questions about what it's like to be enlightened, what's like to be spirit itself, and he would give the answers. I don't know if you heard of him. It's the only person I know that all of the sudden kind of lost all fear and kind of went back home in a sense. And then you're right, he didn't care for the body. It's not something that he would care for. And the or the mind, the egoic mind of planning, memories, and all that. That was just everything just disappeared.
Well, we all have choice, and there are a few masters who have risen to that height, and you have a choice to move back into spirit or to stay on the planet and help others. And it's all
Ah,
about, this is a planet of choice. There is a one master who is like 800 years old or so that has not ever died and is helping people. um,
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now, but um,
Right.
and there's some people who, in my case, I don't think I'm ready for that. I mean, I'm getting close.
800.
But
Can you stay here?
what I know for me is I wrote a contract. We all write a contract before we come down for our spiritual growth. And in the prologue of Paradigm Busters, I tell that I looked down on the planet Earth and I wanted to go down and help. And so that's why I'm here is so
Mhm.
a lot of people have had near death experiences. My near death experiences have been different. They have given me the ability to understand when we go through these difficulties how to get past that and into the better place. So
Right.
everybody's here for a different reason. And I
Mhm.
had to go through those and I had to rise high enough to be able to help others with it. So I'm still around. I'm 86. And the point
Wow.
is that you can't compare one person to another because everybody's path is different for them.
Right. Right. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That's very wise too. Yes. Yes. So it's not like somebody, sometimes some people ask the question, how do we know when somebody, a person is enlightened, the person has become so evolved? How do we know for sure? We can't tell, right, Marilyn? Is there a way that you can tell when somebody has transcended a lot of the
Well,
human?
I'm not real smart in that way because I worked with a master for quite a few years up in Seattle. I would drive up every Monday night with my fellow, and we'd go to the healing classes he had, and he would bring in a Dr. Lang from Spirit, and he would do healing, medical healing, and we were
Yeah.
there learning various things. And it took me several years later after he passed. And I asked his best friend, I said, was he a master? And he said, yes. It took me a long time to put the dots together. He was
Mm,
always happy. He played jokes and pranks. He brought in apports, which you might not be familiar with, which
no.
is taking spirit and putting it into a material form and as a gift to the person. And I have a lot of apports he gave me, and
Uh,
they were created from spirit just for me. And
yeah.
so people don't go around bragging that they're that kind of height in development. He never said it, but he had a great sense of humor, and he was
Mm,
always happy and humorous and told jokes. And
mm.
he was always, in fact, he was very reasonable with his prices. And I asked him one day about that, and he says that's so more people can get help.
Yeah.
Some people have exorbitant prices. And so
Yes.
I've kept my prices reasonable compared to everybody I know that does hypnotism or regression charges a lot more than I do. So, the point is people need the help and it's not about money. Edgar Casey, who was the psychic, great psychic of the last century, he says you get to heaven on the arm of the people you help. And
Right.
the more people I help, the better off I am. And it's not about money. So
Mm,
a person who's really into doing this is not necessarily going to be expensive. They'll have the
mm,
experience and they'll have the knowledge and help that will be there. But if and the other thing you want to know is if anyone else says anything negative, run the other way fast because
yeah.
God is never negative, and that's the fear and the dark side. And I had an
Mm,
experience about where I was hearing a person channeling, and everybody talked about it afterwards, and they said, well, they're not going to hear that person again because it was too negative. And that I went to a spiritualist church and that happened too. It was a very negative spirit came in. I don't go to that church anymore. So
right.
if you're looking for somebody really happy and enjoys life, just plain enjoys it, and just has a good time and likes being who they are, and it's a you by their actions I get and feeling comfortable and safe around them. If you feel safe, have
Mm,
a person I'm working with right now, and she said, "I trust you." That's
mm,
important. You have to be able to trust the person. So You want a trustworthy person to work with.
Right. Thank you so much again for answering that question too. You're very clear about these realms, because I know there's a lot of people say different things, but resonates true to me. Yes, one of the things that you said immediately that I related. I mean, just kind of said, "Wait a minute, that's true." Yeah, it's being light. So it's funny, like light, we are all light, but then light in this realm would be playfulness. It would be more not taking anything too seriously, not being attached to anything. So that makes so much sense. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
don't
thank
take
you.
yourself so seriously. It's the ego that brings you down. And it's,
Yes.
you don't have to pay. I fired that voice in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's the ego that wants to take everything seriously, and let's plan, let's do this, let's charge a lot, let's be rich, so we
And
can.
the other thing is to keep it simple because your ego complicates things. And so the
Yes.
more simple life is very simple, turn
Mm,
to the Father of light and all things, and your life flows. And when you let the
mm,
light come on, when you get rid of the barriers and let the light come on, your life
mm,
flows together and things happen you don't even expect or predict. I mean, I've had some things happen in my life and I thought, oh my gosh, that's something I thought about when I was a 8 year. When I was 8 years old, I had the idea that my aunt's baby grand piano was the greatest thing I ever saw. Was the black baby grand piano. I thought that was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. And when I got divorced, I ended up with a black baby grand piano. But it didn't happen
yeah,
right away. I know
yeah,
why. But the point is, be careful what you think.
mm.
Your
You might
thinking
just.
your thinking will cause trouble or it will bring benefits. Expect a miracle. If whatever happens, expect a miracle.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, one of the messages that I can't help it but just kind of put out there over and over again. Expectations, right? Wanting kind of fixed expectations. Those lead to suffering. I see that clearly because it's attached to fear, because control, fear, all that, it's one and the same.
Well,
So
expectations lead to resentments. And
yes.
I had to clear out my expectations. Resentments are fear based and
Yeah.
they're anger
Mm,
because life didn't go your way. People didn't
right.
act the way you wanted them to act, and they didn't do what you wanted to do. And so you get angry and it's a resentment. Well, they're
Yeah.
living their life, and it's not part of me of what they do or not do. It's their choice. And there's a slogan called live and let live. I
That's
don't
it.
need a resentment. They're just running the way they think they should. There's a lot of people I'd like to get out there and fix, I'll tell you.
Yes,
And I had
everybody.
I had to learn to let them live their own life, and I don't have to be unhappy about it.
Yeah, that's it. Marilyn, you are a joy to speak with, to be around, to work with, to collaborate. I mean, you're just this beautiful guide, that we all need to have somehow close to us as a voice. It's almost like our own voice in a different body, basically. So just to hear our own wisdom within. Thank you so much for open the door to that, being open to it, because I know a lot of people are also afraid of going deeper spiritually. Kind of, I have heard even people who are getting themselves doing, they call like the negative karma, doing a lot of harmful things because they want to be here. They're afraid of light, so they want to continue to come back and be in this realm, because karmic keeps us here too. That's what the body's all about. That's why we are here in the first place. Those patterns, those unhealed patterns and wounds. So I see that there's a lot of that. So I really thank you for being this human being who just said, no, I'm open to freedom. I'm open to go back home. Not everyone says yes to that. I'm open. I'm ready for love, right? Not
Well, I
everyone.
want you to know that karma has ended. The planet
Yes.
has gone into a high enough consciousness that we don't have to worry about balancing our life. It's the Aquarian age. We're moving into the love of the universe that was created in, and then we don't have karma.
Ah, wow. That's wonderful to know. That's that we are not here kind of recycling karma, or repaying debts. Karma pala, they say in Hinduism. Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know about that. I have heard, of course, because a lot of times I just live in the moment, in whatever comes as it goes, and I'm not try not to go too far ahead. And but then it's not easy working with people who are in that realm still of controlling, of fear based. So what's happening to them? Why are they still trapped in this fear? Is not due to karma? What is it then?
Well, there's some karma still acting out. It's not totally out of the picture, but the planet has already moved into higher fifth dimension. My book, The Real Meaning of 2012, Bringing Heaven to Earth, describes the energies that we go through. And the planet
Yeah.
has returned back to the vibration of which it was created, which is love. And in love,
Mm,
there's no karma. So if we choose to rejoin the higher consciousness of what we were created in, like attracts like. So we're moving into fifth dimension, which is love. And they call it the
yeah.
Aquarian age. And there can't be karma because in love, it's all is. It just is. And you don't have to balance the negative with the positive. It just
Yeah.
is. There's the fear is gone. So the karma
Mm,
isn't necessary.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, the fear is gone. Sounds like a song,
Oh, that was a
doesn't it?
good
Sounds,
song.
does-
Perfect.
that'll be a wonderful title of a book too. A song, a poem, or a book. The
Hmm,
fear is gone.
I like
I
that.
love that, Marilyn. Maybe you can write that book next. I would
Oh,
love that to see that somewhere. The fear is gone. That's so liberating, right? Like it gives goosebumps. Like, oh, yeah, that's it.
well, stay
No,
positive and it will leave.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it has been wonderful to be in your presence again and to share your wisdom, your beautiful work. I want to mention the website is booksbymarilyn.com and also Amazon. So is there did I miss any other places where your book are at, selling
Well,
at, Marilyn?
I have three websites.
Mm,
MarilynLRedmond.com has all my activities, including my books, but I have 200 YouTubes. I have a variety of things that articles and so forth that are listed on there. My original website is angelicasgifts.com, and it has
yeah.
my history and articles and all kinds of work. You asked what I do, all the different hats. I have a lot of hats, a lot of talents, you might say, and all
Yeah.
that's listed on angelicasgifts.com. And then, of course, Amazon. My books are on Amazon, all 11 of them. And so there's ways to, if you just Google me, you'll find me.
Ah, wonderful. Yes. So I'll have those links here too. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything that you left unsaid for this conversation at the end of our conversation?
Oh, what a wonderful question. I would like to encourage people to realize that you are a beautiful, creative soul. And we do
Mm,
create our lives. And through Paradigm Busters, you can create your life into a new existence. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. The problem with this earth is people have been taught to look at it from the material world rather than the spiritual world. It's an inside out confusion.
right,
And
right.
so think of yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience, and you can change the human experience back to the spiritual truth of you are the God within.
Yes. Thank you so much. What a beautiful guided meditation and prayer. It sounds like a prayer too. It's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for your presence, and we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again. I'll talk to you off record. I'll end here, but I'll talk to you off record.
Oh,
Bye
well,
for now.
wonderful. I'm looking forward to it.